Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where today we will be taking a look at the WZ-141. The 141 is an Era 2 premium Eastern Alliance tank destroyer. It comes equipped with dual recoilless rifles, dual ATGMs, a manually activated siege mode, and the base asking price is 8,500 gold. Now, given this is an Era 2 premium, the two questions most people are probably asking at this point is the 141 another toxic, broken and overpowered premium in Era 2? And is it worth getting? Well, I'm actually very pleased to say the 141 is balanced very nicely. It can perform very well, but that doesn't mean it isn't without weaknesses. With the engine and tracks equipment, it is very quick, and with the right crew and consumables and the camo net, which I believe is advanced concealment now, it's got fantastic concealment. Stationary, it's superb, and moving, it's pretty decent. The major downside though to the 141 is the number of autocannons that you find in Era 2. One in particular is a non-win straight away. And that's the Weasel. You can use the mobility and the concealment to escape most vehicles with autocannons, but if the parasite finds you, then unfortunately you are dead, which is basically a given for anything that it finds in Era 2. So let's take a look at the 141 in a little bit more detail and compare it to the BMP one. Now, the reason I've chosen the BMP one is a recommendation from a comment I received a few days ago, and it's also based on the fact that the playstyle for this tank and the BMP one, they're actually very, very similar, and it does make quite a good comparison. So the stats: the 141 has 400mm of pen on standard rifle rounds, 230mm of pen on the gold rounds, and 520mm of pen on the ATGMs. Standard rifle heat rounds will do an average of 470 alpha, gold HESH rounds will do an average of 640 alpha, and ATGMs will do an average of 850 alpha. Both weapon systems have 2 shots per clip. The rifles have an intra-clip reload of 3 seconds and a full clip reload of 17 seconds, while the ATGMs have an intra-clip reload of 12 seconds and a full clip reload of 38 seconds. The BMP-1 has 300mm of pen on its standard heat rounds and 400mm of pen on its gold heat rounds, 520mm of pen on its ATGMs. Standard and gold heat in the BMP-1 will do an average of 320 alpha, and the ATGMs will do an average of 800 alpha. So, both vehicles fire heat out of their primary weapon systems, and both fire ATGMs out of their secondary weapon systems. The problem with heat in Era 2 is that it does not like spaced armor, and ATGMs act as heat rounds. The 141 does have a large pen advantage and a large alpha advantage, on its heat rounds compared to the BMP1, but the problem with the 141 is you almost have to be stationary in order to take advantage of that extra penetration and that extra alpha. From an ATGM point of view, there is very little difference between them. Same penetration for both of them, but the 141 will do an average, well, on average it will do an extra 50 damage per missile. Not a huge difference really. I mean, that's near as makes no difference. They're the same ATGMs. Okay, moving on then with the stats. The 141 has 2300 hit points. The BMP1 has 2200 hit points. The 141 has an unboosted top speed of 80 km an hour, while the BMP1 will max out at 76 km an hour. The view range of the 141 comes in at 510 meters, BMP1 560, and finally the concealment values. The 141 has 378 meters of moving concealment and 297 meters of still concealment, while the BMP1 comes in at 272 meters of both moving and still concealment. So, those are all the high-level stats. I have been playing the 141 the same way I play the BMP1, and for the most part, there are some differences between them, but not many. The 141 is a TD and the BMP-1 is a light, but really you can play the 141 like it is a light. The thing that I like about the 141 though is that when it needs to, it can pull that TD bit out of the bag. It can also do TD things. The manual siege mode comes in very handy when you've pulled off a flank and you're not the focus of the enemy team, because that means you can park up, activate the siege mode without worry, and you can see your accuracy go from 0.29 to 0.2. Now, those are the stats for no crew, no equipment, no consumables, nothing. So those figures will only get better as you equip equipment, crew, and everything else. The accuracy in siege mode is fantastic. So that's what I mean by it can do light tank things like you're seeing me do right now, but it can also pull the tank destroyer bit out of the bag, and it can do that as well. The elephant in the room though, for both of these vehicles that we've been talking about, 141 and the BMP-1, is that firing heat at range has always been a tough game. But with the siege mode active, it does make that tough game a little bit easier because the accuracy does reduce significantly. And when I say significantly, I really do mean significantly. The aim reticle becomes absolutely teeny tiny. It's really quite nice. It means that all you have to worry about is trying to lead the shot enough. You don't have to worry about RNG or the sigma of the gun coming into play. The shot, for the most part, will go exactly where you aim it. And that is, well, that's fantastic, if you ask me. So yeah, this is a TD. It's a light tank, sort of, that can do TD things. This is quite an interesting mix, and that's why I quite like this vehicle. This is a fresh take. This is a brand new take on the weapon systems in the game. This is something different that we've not really had before. We've come close to it with the BMP-1, but we've never had anything that's quite like this. This is quite nice, I will say. Alright, the final thing that I will mention is the ATGMs. They have a 100 meter arm distance. So that's going to need to be worked around, and that is something that I believe there's a T62 that shows up behind me any second, and that is something I have to work around with the T62 here. But yeah, you need to work around with the 100 meter arm distance, and then you also need to work around the on the move accuracy of the recoilless rifles, because that's 0.84, which is not very good. I'll be honest, that is not very good. In the BMP-1, you can fire an ATGM on the move, you can switch to the main gun, you can fire a heat round, and you can fire it quite accurately. The BMP-1's accuracy on the move is quite good, and you can see here on screen that reticle is quite large. You're not going to snap something across the map with accuracy like that. So the break between the BMP-1 playstyle and the 141 playstyle is the BMP-1 can be a lot more kinetic when it's fighting. The 141 requires you to be, well, a bit more stationary, I will say. And that kind of does make sense. I mean, this is a tank destroyer. It's classed as a tank destroyer, so I wouldn't expect it to be laser accurate on the move. It needs to be balanced. And I've got to say, this vehicle to me does feel very, very balanced. And I really I do like this. I like the fact that we've got this attention to balance. I really, really do like that. Okay, let's now take a look at the economy stats before we close this one out. So the 141 has a 60% silver boost, 10% tank XP boost, 5% free XP boost, and a 15% crew XP boost. That's actually not bad. You get, it's not the highest silver, 65 is typically the highest silver boost. You're in there at 60. And 15% crew XP isn't the highest. The highest is, oh, what is it on one of the black tanks? It's 75%, but that's a very rare vehicle to have. Typically, 25% crew XP boost is what a typical crew trainer would have. So you're not at the high end of the silver. You're not at the high end of the crew XP, but you're also not lacking in either. So you could, in theory, put your silver boost on this. You could also put your crew XP boost on this, and you could farm both at the same time. It's not going to be as efficient as working one at a time, but hey, 2 for 1, you could do a lot worse. And given how fair and balanced this tank is, I honestly don't see this as a bad purchase if you get one. 8,500 gold for the base price. You could spend your money on worse premiums in this game. I think this is a good purchase. So there you go, guys. That is all I have for the review section of this video. But what I'll do now is we'll just let this replay. We'll just let it play out to the end, and you can get to see just how sneaky this thing is. So Big Light Panzer spots me eventually, but this thing is still pretty quick. I'm doing 91 kilometers an hour there. Unfortunately, I knew I was targeted. I knew I was spotted. I figured the ELC would be in front of me, but I didn't dodge in time. Now, one thing that does let this tank down, I will say, it's not really the tank letting it down. I'll insert another clip here. You can have a look. The gun sometimes does not shoot where you aim it, which is a problem in my mind. That is not good. That's not what you would want to spend your money on. But realistically speaking, that is not a WZ-141 issue. That is a wider game issue, because it's not just this vehicle that suffers from that. Other vehicles have the same problem. And Wargaming need to figure out a way of making sure the guns shoot where we aim them. But nevertheless, I am the last alive, 4,500 damage in, pulled off a snapshot there on the move, which doesn't happen very often. But there you go. Still did quite well for a defeat. And this tank is capable. This tank feels very capable, and I really, really like the fresh take of the recoilless rifles and the ATGMs and the siege mode as well. The siege mode is a nice, touch of spice in there for this one. I really like it. Okay, guys, that's all I've got for this video. If you've enjoyed it, please leave it a like. If not, a dislike. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one.